The knife sliced through my wedding cake 3 months ago, and now it's pressed against my throat. But I'm the one holding it. My reflection stares back from the kitchen window, silver hair wild from the rain, reading glasses hanging crooked on my chain. The woman in the glass looks like a ghost. Maybe because for 3 months, that's exactly what I've been. The house is dark except for the porch light I left burning. Robert always said never come home to a dark house, Priscilla. Even now, 3 years after his funeral, I follow his rules. Some habits die harder than husbands. But tonight, I'm not the one who should be afraid of the dark. I set the knife down on the counter and pull my cardigan tighter. The fabric smells like hospital disinfectant and lies. Everything in this house smells wrong now, like strangers have been living in my walls, sleeping in my bed, eating from my dishes. Because they have. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimes 11:30. They think I'm 6 feet under at Hillcrest Cemetery, next to Robert. They think they got away with it. They're about to learn that Priscilla Davenport doesn't die that easy. Before I go further, tell me in the comments where you're watching from, and if you're hooked already, a like and subscribe will keep these stories coming. The floorboards upstairs creak. Someone's moving around in what used to be my bedroom. My son Marcus's voice drifts down through the ceiling, muffled but clear enough. The lawyers said the money should transfer by Friday. 3.2 million, plus the house and investments. A woman laughs. Not his fiancée Sarah's laugh. I taught that girl in 10th grade English, I'd know her giggle anywhere. This laugh is throaty, confident. Hungry. What about the old lady's jewelry? The diamond set. Already pawned most of it. The rest is in the safe. My hand finds the empty space on my ring finger where Robert's grandmother's engagement ring used to sit. The ring I was wearing when they pushed my car off Millfield Bridge. The ring that should have been buried with my body, if they'd bothered to look for one. I move through my own house like a burglar, avoiding the squeaky floorboard by the stairs, the loose tile in the kitchen that clicks. 47 years I've lived here, and now I'm sneaking through it like a thief. But they're the thieves. They stole my life, my money, my identity. They just didn't steal my pulse. The accident wasn't an accident. I know that now. Marcus needed money for his wedding, his new business, his expensive fiancée's expensive dreams. But he couldn't wait for me to die naturally. 72 isn't old enough, apparently. Not when there's $3 million sitting in bank accounts with his name as beneficiary. So they helped me along. The brake lines were cut clean. I saw the mechanic's report before the lawyers buried it with my supposed corpse. The steering wheel was tampered with. Even the airbag had been disabled. My own son tried to murder me, and he almost succeeded. I should have died when my Honda Civic crashed through the guardrail and plunged into Miller's Creek. The water was black and cold, rushing through the broken windows like liquid death. I remember the moment I realized the doors wouldn't open, the seatbelt wouldn't release. I remember thinking about Robert, about how I'd be seeing him soon. But then I remembered something else. I remembered the look on Marcus's face when he hugged me goodbye that morning. Not sadness. Not love. Relief. Like he was already spending my inheritance in his head. That memory gave me strength I didn't know I had. I broke the passenger window with my bare hands, cutting them to ribbons on the glass. I held my breath and squeezed through that jagged opening while my car sank into the mud below. I crawled out of that creek like something from a horror movie, bloody, choking, more dead than alive. But alive. The homeless camp under the interstate bridge became my home for 2 weeks. Jake and Mary, 2 runaways who'd been living rough for months, found me wandering the riverbank in shock. They shared their food, their fire, their cardboard shelter. They asked no questions when I told them my name was Patricia. They just accepted that sometimes people need to disappear for a while. I watched my own funeral from behind the oak trees at Hillcrest Cemetery. Watched Marcus cry fake tears over an empty coffin. Watched him comfort Sarah, who seemed genuinely upset. She'd always been a sweet girl, probably had no idea what her fiancé had done. Watched the small crowd of former colleagues and students who'd come to pay their respects to the English teacher who'd touched their lives. None of them knew they were grieving a living woman. After the service, I followed Marcus and his mystery woman, a bleached blonde in a tight black dress who definitely wasn't Sarah, back to what used to be my house. I watched them through the windows as they celebrated. Champagne at my wake. They toasted my death like it was their lottery win. Because for them, it was. I spent the next month planning. Living in shelters, using library computers, digging through public records and insurance documents. Learning exactly how much my death was worth. Learning how quickly they'd moved to claim everything I'd spent a lifetime building. The insurance company had already paid out the death benefit. The bank accounts had been transferred. My house had been put up for sale. My entire existence had been liquidated and distributed like I was a business being dissolved. But here's what Marcus never understood about his mother. I didn't become a high school English teacher because I loved books. I became a teacher because I loved justice. I spent 4 decades teaching teenagers about consequences, about how every action creates ripples, about how the truth always comes to light eventually. Now it's time for the final lesson. The voices upstairs have moved to the master bathroom. I can hear water running, the clink of glass on marble. They're taking a bath in my tub, drinking wine from my cabinet, living their best life on my grave. I climb the stairs one careful step at a time. Each creak sounds like thunder in the silence, but they're too busy celebrating to notice. The hallway stretches ahead of me, family photos lining the walls like a timeline of betrayal. Marcus as a baby in my arms. Marcus on his first day of school. Marcus graduating college with the degree I paid for. Marcus at Christmas last year, hugging me and telling me he loved me. All lies. All performance. The bathroom door is cracked open, steam escaping into the hallway. I can see them through the gap, Marcus lounging in the oversized tub I picked out when we renovated 5 years ago, and the blonde woman I don't recognize perched on the edge, painting her nails blood red. What if someone saw her car get pulled from the creek? The woman asks. What if they realize there's no body? Marcus waves his hand dismissively, water sloshing. Creek runs straight into the river. Currents strong this time of year. They'll assume she got swept downstream. Besides, who's going to look? I'm her only family, and I'm not asking questions. And the girl? Sarah. She thinks it was just a tragic accident. She's been planning the funeral reception, picking flowers, doing all that emotional stuff. Perfect cover. The woman laughs again, that awful hungry sound. Poor little Sarah. She has no idea she's marrying a murderer. She'll never have to know. After the wedding, after we get the last of the insurance money, we can disappear. Start fresh somewhere warm. I press my back against the hallway wall, my heart hammering so hard I'm sure they can hear it. The blonde woman, I still don't know her name, slides into the tub with Marcus. Water splashes onto my bathroom floor. You're brilliant, baby. Absolutely brilliant. It was easier than I thought it would be. She trusted me completely. Never saw it coming. They're wrong about that. I saw it coming in the split second before the brakes failed. I saw it in the way the steering wheel fought my hands. I saw it in Marcus's face that morning when he offered to check my car before I drove to the grocery store. I just didn't want to believe it. But seeing it and proving it are two different things. Right now, I'm a dead woman with no legal existence, no bank accounts, no identification. If I walk into a police station, they'll think I'm either lying or insane. I need evidence. I need proof. I need them to confess to someone who can do something about it. The water stops running. Their voices drop to whispers, then to sounds I don't want to hear coming from my bathroom. I back away from the door and slip into what used to be Marcus's childhood bedroom. It's been converted into an office now, with a desk and filing cabinets and my old computer. Papers are scattered across the surface, insurance forms, bank statements, legal documents. All the paperwork of erasing a person's life. I start photographing everything with the disposable camera I bought at the convenience store. Every document, every signature, every piece of evidence that Marcus Davenport systematically stole his mother's identity after murdering her. The camera's flash seems impossibly bright in the dark room, but they're too distracted to notice. A manila folder catches my eye, tucked behind the computer monitor. Inside are photos, surveillance shots of me taken from a distance. Me leaving the bank. Me at the grocery store. Me getting into my car on the morning I almost died. Someone had been watching me, documenting my routines, planning the perfect time and place to kill me. The photos are dated and time-stamped. Professional quality. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment crime of greed. This was a carefully orchestrated murder plot that took weeks to plan. At the bottom of the folder is a business card, Rebecca Chun, private investigator. On the back, someone has written in Marcus's handwriting, final payment on delivery of proof of death. Now I know who the blonde woman is. She's not Marcus's lover, she's his accomplice. A private investigator he hired to help him commit the perfect murder. My hands shake as I photograph the evidence. This is it. This is what I need to bring them down. But as I'm putting the folder back, my elbow bumps the computer mouse. The screen lights up, showing an email inbox. The most recent message is from Sarah, sent 3 hours ago. Marcus, I'm so sorry but I can't do this anymore. The guilt is eating me alive. I keep thinking about your mom, about how she must have felt in those last moments. I know you said the brake failure was just a coincidence, but what if it wasn't? What if someone wanted to hurt her? I think we should tell the police about the strange things that have been happening. The calls she mentioned, the feeling that someone was watching her. I can't marry you until we know the truth about what happened to Priscilla. Please call me. We need to talk. My breath catches. Sweet Sarah, my former student, knows something isn't right. She's asking the right questions. But she has no idea she's engaged to the person who killed me. The bathroom has gone quiet. No more splashing, no more whispers. I minimize the email and creep back toward the hallway, but as I reach the doorway, floorboards creak behind me. Well, look what we have here. I turn around slowly. Rebecca Chun stands in the hallway, wrapped in my bathrobe, her wet hair dripping onto my carpet. In her hand is a gun, small, black, professional-looking. You know, she says conversationally, when you hire someone to investigate a person, you learn all kinds of interesting things about them. Like how Priscilla Davenport was an excellent swimmer in college. Like how she once saved a drowning child at the public pool. Like how she's probably too smart and too stubborn to die in a simple car accident. My mouth has gone dry as dust. I don't know what you're talking about. She smiles, showing perfect white teeth. Sure you do, Priscilla. You're supposed to be dead. Behind her, Marcus appears in the bathroom doorway, pulling on his clothes. When he sees me, his face goes white as cemetery marble. Mom. The word hangs in the air like a blade. After 3 months of being dead, of being erased, of being nothing, my own son has just acknowledged that I exist. That I'm real. That I'm here. That I survived. Hello, Marcus. My voice sounds steadier than I feel. Surprised to see me? He stares at me like I'm a ghost made flesh. Which, I suppose, I am. But you died. We had a funeral. I buried you. You buried an empty box. I step further into the hallway, keeping my hands visible, my movements slow and non-threatening. But I'm sure you knew that. Rebecca keeps the gun trained on me, but her expression is almost amused. This is interesting. The dead rising to confront the living. Very biblical. You hired her to kill me, I say to Marcus, not taking my eyes off the gun. Your own mother. That's not. He stops, runs his hands through his hair. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen? You cut my brake lines and disabled my airbag. You wanted me dead so you could inherit my money. What part of that was supposed to be different? His face crumples, and for a moment he looks like the little boy who used to cry when he scraped his knee. But the moment passes, and when he looks at me again, his eyes are cold. You were dying anyway, he says quietly. The doctors said you had maybe 2 years left. I stare at him. What doctors? What are you talking about? Rebecca laughs, a sound like breaking glass. Oh, this is rich. He never told you. Told me what? Marcus won't meet my eyes. The blood work from your last physical. Dr. Morrison called me because you'd listed me as your emergency contact. You had late-stage pancreatic cancer. Inoperable. 6 months to live, maybe less. The world tilts sideways. I grab the doorframe to keep from falling. That's impossible. I feel fine. I've been fine. The symptoms don't show up until the end, Rebecca says helpfully. That's why they call it the silent killer. I think about the slight nausea I'd been feeling lately. The fatigue I'd attributed to grief. The loss of appetite I'd blamed on living alone. You're lying. Medical records don't lie, Marcus says. I can show you the paperwork. So you decided to speed things up? Instead of letting me live my last months in peace, you tried to murder me. I needed the money now. The words burst out of him like a dam breaking. The wedding, the business loan, Sarah's family expecting this perfect ceremony. I couldn't wait. I couldn't watch you waste away in some hospital bed spending everything on treatments that wouldn't work. So you thought you'd just, what? Push me off a bridge and collect the insurance. It was supposed to be quick, painless, better than cancer. I laugh, and the sound is bitter as medicine. Better for who? You or me? Rebecca is watching our family reunion with professional interest, the gun never wavering. This is all very touching, but we have a problem. You're supposed to be dead, Priscilla. Your death certificate has been filed. Your assets have been transferred. Your funeral has been held. You're legally deceased. Then I guess I'll have to undie. That's not really an option. She tilts her head. See, if you suddenly come back to life, there will be questions. Investigations. Paper trails leading back to your son and me. That would be inconvenient. The truth hits me like cold water. They're not just going to let me walk away. They can't. I'm a witness to my own attempted murder, and dead witnesses can't testify. You're going to kill me again. We're going to finish what we started, Rebecca says. Though it won't be as clean as the car accident. We'll have to get creative. Marcus stares at the floor, his hands shaking. There has to be another way. No, there doesn't. Rebecca's voice is matter-of-fact, businesslike. Your mother is a loose end. We tie up loose ends. I look at my son, really look at him. The boy I raised, the man I put through college, the child I loved more than my own life. He's going to stand there and watch while his hired killer murders his mother. Again. Marcus, I say softly, please. But when he looks up, his eyes are empty. The son I thought I knew is gone, if he ever existed at all. In his place stands a stranger wearing my child's face. I'm sorry, Mom. But you're already dead. This is just making it official. Rebecca raises the gun, and I see my death reflected in her cold eyes. But as her finger tightens on the trigger, the house suddenly fills with light. Car doors slam outside. Heavy footsteps pound up the front walkway. A voice calls out, amplified by a bullhorn. This is the police. The house is surrounded. The gun in Rebecca's hand wavers as red and blue lights strobe through the bedroom windows. Marcus goes pale as death, ironic, considering he's been planning mine. How? Rebecca hisses, backing toward the window. How did they know? I smile, tasting blood where I bit my tongue in shock. You're not the only one who knows how to investigate people. The truth is, I have no idea how the police found us. But I'm not about to tell them that. Police. Open the door immediately. Rebecca's professional calm cracks like ice. She grabs Marcus by the arm, dragging him toward the back of the house. Is there another way out? The basement, he stammers. There's a door to the backyard. What about her? Rebecca jerks the gun toward me. Marcus looks at me with something that might be regret, or might just be annoyance at getting caught. Leave her. She's already supposed to be dead. Let the cops figure out what happened. They rush past me toward the stairs, Rebecca keeping the gun trained on me until the last second. I hear their feet pounding down the steps, then the basement door slamming. But I don't follow. Instead, I walk to the front window and look out at the circus on my lawn. 3 police cars, an ambulance, and what looks like a news van. Officers with flashlights are moving around the perimeter of the house. This isn't a random bust. This is a coordinated response to something specific. The front door rattles under heavy knocks. Mrs. Davenport. This is Sergeant Martinez with Metro PD. We need to speak with you. Mrs. Davenport. They know I'm alive. I make my way downstairs, my legs shaky with adrenaline. Through the kitchen window, I can see more officers positioned around the backyard. If Marcus and Rebecca tried to run, they didn't get far. I open the front door to find a Hispanic woman in her 40s wearing a police jacket over civilian clothes. Behind her stand 2 uniformed officers, their hands resting on their weapons. Mrs. Priscilla Davenport? Yes. The word comes out as a croak. I clear my throat and try again. Yes, that's me. I'm Sergeant Martinez. Ma'am, we received a very interesting phone call about an hour ago. Someone claiming to be you, reporting that you'd witnessed your son planning to kill you for your inheritance. My mouth falls open. But I didn't call anyone. The call came from the phone in your kitchen. We traced it back to this address. She studies my face carefully. Ma'am, according to our records, you died 3 months ago in a car accident. Your death certificate is on file with the county. I know how this looks. I step back, gesturing for them to come inside. But I can explain everything. As they enter, I hear shouting from the backyard, followed by the distinctive sound of handcuffs clicking closed. Through the window, I watch 2 officers escorting Marcus and Rebecca toward the police cars. Rebecca is screaming something about illegal search and seizure. Marcus just looks defeated. Mrs. Davenport, Sergeant Martinez says gently, I need you to start from the beginning. And I mean the very beginning. So I do. I tell her about the brake lines and the bridge and the black water closing over my head. I tell her about crawling out of Miller's Creek more dead than alive, about hiding with the homeless kids, about watching my own funeral. I tell her about coming home tonight to find my son celebrating my death with the woman who helped him orchestrate it. Sergeant Martinez listens without interruption, taking notes in a small leather pad. When I finish, she's quiet for a long moment. Mrs. Davenport, do you remember making a phone call tonight? Specifically to 911. No. I've been hiding for 3 months. I don't even have a phone. The call came from your kitchen landline at 10:47 p.m. The caller identified herself as Priscilla Davenport and said she was hiding in her own house while her son and his accomplice planned to kill her. She gave us this address and said we needed to come immediately. I stare at her. But that's impossible. I was upstairs taking pictures of evidence. I never came down to the kitchen until after I heard them in the bathroom. Mrs. Davenport, is it possible you made the call and don't remember? You've been through severe trauma. Sometimes the mind blocks out. I would remember calling the police. But even as I say it, doubt creeps in. The last 3 months have been a blur of survival and planning. Have I been more affected than I realized? One of the uniformed officers appears in the doorway. Sergeant? We found something in the basement you need to see. We follow him down the wooden steps to my basement. It's been transformed into something that looks like a war room. Charts and timelines cover every wall. Photos of me, hundreds of them, are pinned to cork boards. Maps of my daily routes are marked with red X's. There's even a scale model of the bridge where my car went over, complete with tiny toy cars demonstrating different crash scenarios. Jesus, Sergeant Martinez breathes. This is extensive. But what catches my attention is the desk in the center of the room. On it sits a thick manila folder labeled, Priscilla Davenport, Final Solution. Inside are detailed medical records, my medical records. The ones Marcus mentioned upstairs. My hands shake as I read the diagnosis. Pancreatic adenocarcinoma, stage 4. Metastases to liver and lymph nodes. Prognosis, 3 to 6 months without treatment, possibly 8 to 12 months with aggressive chemotherapy. The papers are dated 4 months ago. He was telling the truth, I whisper. I really am dying. Sergeant Martinez looks over my shoulder at the medical reports. Mrs. Davenport, did you know about this diagnosis? No. My doctor never. Dr. Morrison never said anything. But as I flip through the pages, I find a letter addressed to me, dated 3 weeks after the test results. It's still in its envelope, unopened. Dear Mrs. Davenport, I read aloud. I've been trying to reach you by phone to discuss your recent test results. Please call my office immediately to schedule a follow-up appointment. It's urgent that we discuss treatment options as soon as possible. There are 6 more letters, all unopened, all increasingly urgent in tone. I never got these, I say. Marcus was picking up my mail while I was supposed to be dead. So your son knew you were terminally ill, but you didn't. The full scope of Marcus's betrayal hits me like a physical blow. He didn't just try to kill me for money. He let me spend what might be my last months on Earth thinking I was healthy, thinking I had years ahead of me. He stole my time as surely as he stole my money. Mrs. Davenport? Sergeant Martinez's voice seems to come from far away. Are you all right? I'm not all right. I'm dying, and I've been dying for months without knowing it. Every day I spent hiding in shelters and planning revenge was a day stolen from whatever life I have left. I need to sit down. She helps me to a folding chair next to the desk. The basement suddenly feels too small, too close. I can smell the damp concrete, the musty air, the lingering scent of fear and planning. There's something else, the uniformed officer says. He's holding a small digital recorder. We found this in the desk drawer. It's been recording everything that happened upstairs tonight. He presses play, and my own voice fills the basement. Marcus, please. I'm sorry, Mom, but you're already dead. This is just making it official. Then Rebecca's voice, your mother is a loose end. We tie up loose ends. That's a confession to conspiracy to commit murder, Sergeant Martinez says. Both attempts, the car accident and tonight. But I'm staring at the recorder with growing confusion. When did they set that up? And how did they know I'd be here tonight? Mrs. Davenport, you said you've been planning this confrontation for weeks. Did you tell anyone about your plans? No. I've been completely alone since the accident. What about the people who helped you after you crawled out of the creek? Jake and Mary. I think about the homeless kids who found me on the riverbank. Sweet, damaged children who asked no questions and expected nothing in return. They shared their food and their shelter with a woman they thought was named Patricia. They wouldn't have. They don't even know my real name. But as I say it, I remember something. A conversation around their campfire 2 weeks ago. Mary had been talking about her mother, about how she wished she could go home but was too afraid of her stepfather. I told her that sometimes the people who are supposed to protect us are the ones who hurt us most. I'd mentioned having a son who disappointed me. Had I said more than I remembered? Had I mentioned names, details, plans? We'll need to speak with them, Sergeant Martinez says. But right now, we have bigger concerns. Mrs. Davenport, you've been legally dead for 3 months. Your son has been living in your house, spending your money, making decisions about your estate. That's fraud on a massive scale, even without the murder attempts. What happens now? Now we sort out the legal mess. You'll need lawyers, good ones. Your death certificate will have to be reversed, your assets recovered, your identity restored. It's going to be complicated and expensive. Expensive. I almost laugh. I'm a dead woman with no money, no identification, and no time. Even if I get everything back, what am I going to do with it? Buy a nicer coffin? Sergeant, how long does pancreatic cancer take to? How much time do I have? She looks at the medical reports again. I'm not a doctor, but according to this, the original prognosis was 3 to 6 months without treatment. That was 4 months ago. So I'm living on borrowed time. Time I borrowed from my own death. Footsteps on the basement stairs interrupt my morbid calculations. Another officer appears, this one looking grim. Sergeant? We've got a problem. The male suspect is asking to speak with his mother privately. Says he has information about other victims. Other victims. The words hit me like ice water. What other victims? I stand up so fast the chair tips over. Marcus killed other people? Ma'am, we don't know yet. But he's claiming this wasn't his first time. I think about Rebecca Chen, professional private investigator with a gun and no conscience. About the elaborate basement setup that looked like it had been used before. About how smoothly they'd planned my murder, like they'd had practice. I want to talk to him. Mrs. Davenport, that's not a good idea. He's my son. The words taste like ash. And if he's killed other people, I need to know. Sergeant Martinez studies my face for a long moment. 5 minutes. We'll be right there with you. They escort me up from the basement and out to the police car where Marcus sits in the back seat. His hands are cuffed behind him, and he looks smaller somehow, diminished. Like a little boy caught stealing cookies. When he sees me approach, his eyes fill with tears. Mom. I slide into the front seat and turn to face him. Other victims, Marcus? How many other people did you kill? It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. He looks out the window at the police cars, the flashing lights, the neighbors who've come out to gawk at the drama. Rebecca. She specializes in inheritance cases. Rich old people whose families can't wait for nature to take its course. How many? I don't know. She never told me specifics. But she said I wasn't her first client. My stomach turns. So you hired a serial killer to murder your mother? She's not a serial killer. She's more like a service provider. For people in difficult situations. Difficult situations? Is that what you call it when you want your parent to die faster? He finally looks at me, and I see something broken in his eyes. Something that might have been there all along, hidden under the polite smiles and dutiful son act. Do you know what it's like? He whispers. Watching you live in this big house, sitting on all this money, while I'm drowning in debt. While Sarah's father looks at me like I'm trash because I can't afford the wedding she wants. So you decided to speed up my death. I decided to stop waiting for something that might never happen. You're 72, Mom. You could live another 10 years. I don't have 10 years. But I don't have 10 years. According to those medical reports, I had maybe 6 months. You couldn't even wait 6 months. His face crumples. I didn't know if the diagnosis was real. Dr. Morrison could have been wrong. You seemed fine. You were still driving, still taking care of yourself, still being you. What if you lived for years? What if the cancer went into remission? I couldn't take that chance. The casual cruelty of it takes my breath away. He was so desperate to inherit my money that he couldn't risk me surviving my own terminal illness. Marcus, I say quietly, do you understand that you tried to murder your own mother? I understand that I tried to give you a quick death instead of a slow one. I understand that I tried to spare you months of pain and hospitals and treatments that wouldn't work anyway. You tried to spare yourself months of waiting. He doesn't answer, which is answer enough. A tap on the window interrupts us. Sergeant Martinez gestures for me to get out. Our 5 minutes are up. Mrs. Davenport, Marcus calls as I reach for the door handle. I'm sorry. I really am. But you have to understand, I thought you were going to die anyway. I turn back to look at him one last time. Marcus, I am going to die anyway. We all are. That's not the point. Then what is the point? The point is how we choose to live while we're here. And you chose to become a killer. I get out of the car without another word. Behind me, I hear him calling my name, but I don't turn around. Some bridges, once burned, can never be rebuilt. Sergeant Martinez is waiting for me by the front door. How are you holding up? I'm not sure. Everything I thought I knew about my life has been turned upside down in the space of one night. We're going to need you to come to the station tomorrow to give a formal statement. And you'll need to contact a lawyer about your legal status. This is going to be a long process, Mrs. Davenport. A long process. But according to the medical reports, I don't have long. Maybe not long enough to see justice done. What about Rebecca? What's she saying? Nothing. She's lawyered up already. But we found enough evidence in that basement to charge both of them with attempted murder, fraud, and conspiracy. Whether we can prove other victims, that's going to take time. Time. Always comes back to time. As the police cars pull away, taking Marcus and Rebecca with them, I stand alone in front of the house I've lived in for 47 years. The house that was supposed to be my sanctuary, but became the scene of my near murder. The neighbors are still watching from their porches and windows. Mrs. Chun from next door, no relation to Rebecca, waves tentatively. She probably thinks she's seeing a ghost. In a way, she is. I wave back and walk up the front steps to my door. Inside, the house feels different somehow. Not just because of the invasion by Marcus and Rebecca, but because I'm different. 3 months ago, Priscilla Davenport was a healthy widow looking forward to her retirement years. Tonight, Priscilla Davenport is a dying woman who's learned that her own son tried to kill her. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimes midnight. Technically, it's a new day. Maybe one of my last. I make my way to the kitchen and put the kettle on for tea. As I'm reaching for the cups, the phone rings. I stare at it for a moment, my hand frozen in midair. According to Sergeant Martinez, someone used this phone to call the police tonight. Someone who knew I was here, who knew I was in danger. The phone rings again. On the third ring, I pick it up. Hello. Silence. Then, a voice I recognize but can't quite place. The first lesson is complete, Priscilla. But there are more lessons to learn. The line goes dead, leaving me holding the receiver in my trembling hand. Someone else knows I'm alive. Someone who's been watching, waiting, orchestrating events from the shadows. And they're not finished with me yet. The voice on the phone echoes in my head as I set the receiver down with shaking hands. The first lesson is complete. What first lesson? And who else knows I'm supposed to be dead? I move through the house, turning on every light, checking every lock, pulling every curtain closed. The familiar rooms feel foreign now, contaminated by secrets and violence. In the kitchen, the kettle screams like a banshee until I snatch it off the burner. My hands shake as I make tea, the simple ritual failing to calm my nerves. 3 months of careful planning, of staying invisible, of plotting revenge. And now someone else has been pulling strings I didn't even know existed. The phone rings again. This time I let it ring 6 times before answering. What do you want? To finish what your son started. The voice is electronically distorted now, robotic and cold. He was sloppy, Priscilla. Emotional. I don't make those mistakes. Who are you? I'm someone who cleans up loose ends. Rebecca Chun was supposed to be professional, but she got greedy. Started keeping trophies from her jobs. That basement full of evidence? That was her insurance policy. Unfortunately, insurance policies can be used against you. My blood turns to ice. You're Rebecca's partner. I'm Rebecca's employer. She works for people who need problems solved quietly. Your son hired her through intermediaries. He never even knew my name. What do you want from me? Nothing, actually. You've already served your purpose. The police have Rebecca, they have your son, and they have enough evidence to connect them to at least 3 other inheritance murders in the past 2 years. Case closed. 3 other murders. Families destroyed by greed and impatience. Children who couldn't wait for their parents to die naturally. Then why are you calling me? Because there's one more loose end to tie up. You. The line goes dead. I drop the phone and run to the front door, checking the locks again. Then the back door. Then every window on the ground floor. But even as I'm securing the house, I know it's pointless. This person, whoever they are, has been orchestrating events for months. They knew I was alive when everyone else thought I was dead. They knew I'd come home tonight. They probably know exactly how to get inside. The house phone rings again, but this time I don't answer. Instead, I grab my car keys, the spare set Marcus didn't know about, and head for the garage. But as I open the garage door, I stop cold. My Honda Civic sits in the bay where I left it 3 months ago. Except that's impossible. My car is at the bottom of Miller's Creek, crushed and waterlogged and probably still leaking oil into the fish habitat. I approach the car like it's a wild animal that might bolt. The paint is the same silver blue. The license plate matches. Even the small dent in the rear bumper from when I backed into a shopping cart last year is exactly where it should be. But when I run my fingers along the brake lines, they're intact. When I check the steering column, it's solid. The airbag warning light isn't illuminated on the dashboard. This isn't my car. This is an identical replacement, perfect down to the last detail. Tucked under the windshield wiper is an envelope with my name written in block letters. Inside is a single sheet of paper. Priscilla, your son's plan was flawed from the beginning. He hired Rebecca to kill you, but Rebecca works for me. I've been watching your family for 6 months, waiting for the right moment to act. Marcus made it easy by providing motive and opportunity. The car accident was meant to look like his handiwork, but you were never supposed to die. You were supposed to survive and discover his betrayal. You were supposed to want revenge. Every step you've taken since crawling out of that creek has been exactly what I needed you to do. Thank you for your cooperation. You can keep the car. Consider it severance pay. A friend. My legs give out. I sink onto the garage floor, the letter fluttering from my numb fingers. None of it was real. Not Marcus's plan, not Rebecca's involvement, not even my survival. I've been a puppet dancing to someone else's choreography, thinking I was the playwright of my own revenge story. But why? What could anyone gain by orchestrating such an elaborate deception? The answer hits me like a physical blow. The medical records. The cancer diagnosis that Marcus knew about but I didn't. Someone wanted me to know I was dying. Someone wanted me to confront my mortality and my son's betrayal simultaneously. Someone who benefits from my death, but needed it to look natural. I struggle to my feet and walk back into the house. In the kitchen, I open the phone book and look up Dr. Morrison's after-hours number. The answering service connects me immediately. Mrs. Davenport. His voice is thick with sleep and confusion. But, you're deceased. I signed the death certificate myself. Dr. Morrison, I need you to tell me the truth about my test results. The pancreatic cancer diagnosis from 4 months ago. A long pause. Mrs. Davenport, I never diagnosed you with cancer. Your blood work from your last physical was completely normal. I have no idea what you're talking about. The phone slips from my hand and clatters to the floor. The medical records were fake. The cancer diagnosis was fabricated. I'm not dying, at least, not any faster than anyone else my age. But if the cancer is fake, then why did someone go to such elaborate lengths to make me believe it was real? I pick up the phone and dial information. I need the number for Hillcrest Cemetery. The night watchman who answers sounds bored until I explain what I need. Then his voice sharpens with interest. Ma'am, you're going to want to talk to the day supervisor, but I can tell you right now, there's no grave for Priscilla Davenport in our cemetery. Never has been. But I watched my own funeral. I saw them lower the coffin. Lady, I've worked here 12 years. We had no burials 3 months ago matching that description. You sure you got the right cemetery? I hang up without answering. No grave. No body. No funeral. But I watched it happen. I stood behind the oak trees and watched Marcus cry over my coffin. I saw the flowers, the mourners, the pastor reading from his little black book. Unless. I grab my keys and drive to Hillcrest Cemetery, my mind racing. The roads are empty at 1 a.m., and I make it there in 15 minutes. The gates are locked, but the fence is only 4 feet high. I climb over like a teenager sneaking out past curfew. The cemetery is smaller than I remember. Much smaller. And when I find the section where my funeral supposedly took place, there's no fresh grave. No headstone. No disturbed earth. But there is something else. A small metal plaque set flush with the ground, the kind they use for temporary markers. Sarah Elizabeth Morrison, beloved daughter 1995 to 2024. Sarah Morrison. Sarah, my former student who was engaged to Marcus. Sarah who sent him worried emails about my death. Sarah, who shared the same last name as my doctor. I kneel beside the marker, my mind putting together pieces of a puzzle I should have seen months ago. Dr. Morrison's daughter. The sweet girl I taught in 10th grade English, who wrote beautiful poetry and dreamed of becoming a teacher herself. The girl who died 3 months ago in a car accident. My phone buzzes with a text message from an unknown number. Now you understand. Sarah died in the accident that was meant for you. She was driving your car because Marcus asked her to pick up your prescription. The brake lines failed just like they were supposed to, but she died instead of you. Marcus has been living with that guilt, and I've been living with the need for justice. Sarah was my only child, Priscilla. The light of my life. And your son killed her. Dr. Morrison. Sarah's father. Another message appears. I couldn't prosecute Marcus without proof of intent. So I created proof. I fabricated the medical records to give him motive. I hired Rebecca Chin to provide opportunity. I orchestrated everything to make him confess to attempted murder. The recording device in the basement, the anonymous call to police, all me. My hands shake as I read. You were never supposed to suffer, Priscilla. You were supposed to be the instrument of justice for my daughter's death. But Marcus's guilt drove him to confess to trying to kill you instead of admitting he killed Sarah. He's going to prison for attempting to murder his mother, when he should be going to prison for actually murdering my daughter. One final message. I'm sorry you got caught in the middle. But Sarah deserved justice, and now she has it. Your son will spend the rest of his life in prison, and Rebecca's organization is exposed. The other families who lost loved ones will finally have answers. Sometimes the ends do justify the means. I sit in the dark cemetery, surrounded by the graves of strangers, and think about justice. About truth. About the difference between what people deserve and what they get. Marcus tried to kill me for money, but ended up killing an innocent girl instead. Dr. Morrison lost his daughter and orchestrated an elaborate revenge to see her killer punished. Rebecca Chun ran a murder-for-hire business that destroyed families. And me? I'm alive when I thought I was dead, healthy when I thought I was dying, and the unwitting star of someone else's revenge story. My phone rings. I answer without looking at the caller ID. Hello, Dr. Morrison. Priscilla. His voice is heavy with exhaustion. I'm sorry. I'm sorry you had to go through all of this. Sarah was driving my car when it crashed. Marcus called her that morning. Said you were feeling sick and asked if she could pick up a prescription for you. She was always eager to help, always putting other people first. She didn't know the brake lines had been cut. And you've known all along that Marcus killed her. I suspected. The timing was too convenient, right when he needed money, right after he'd taken out a large life insurance policy on you. But suspecting and proving are different things. I close my eyes, seeing Sarah's face from my 10th grade classroom. Bright, eager, kind Sarah who wrote poetry about hope and love and the beauty of everyday moments. What happens now? Now Marcus goes to trial for attempted murder. The evidence against him is overwhelming, the surveillance photos, the basement setup, the recorded confession. He'll be convicted. But not for Sarah's death. The statute of limitations hasn't run out. If new evidence emerges linking him directly to her murder, he can still be charged. But for now, justice will have to take the form it can get. I stand up from beside Sarah's grave, brushing dirt off my knees. Dr. Morrison, do you really think this is what Sarah would have wanted? All this deception and manipulation? A long pause. I think Sarah would have wanted to live. Since that's not possible, I settled for her killer being punished. Even if it meant destroying other people in the process? Priscilla, your son is a murderer. Rebecca Chin is a professional killer. The world is better off with both of them in prison. If my actions accomplish that, then yes, I believe Sarah would approve. I want to argue, to point out that the ends don't always justify the means, that truth matters more than results. But as I look down at Sarah's grave marker, I remember the bright-eyed girl who used to stay after class to discuss poetry. The girl who wrote an essay about how literature teaches us to see the world through other people's eyes. The girl who died because she was kind enough to help her boyfriend's mother. Maybe Dr. Morrison is right. Maybe sometimes justice has to be carved out of lies and deception because the truth alone isn't strong enough to carry it. What about me? I ask. What am I supposed to do now? I've been legally dead for 3 months. I have no money, no identification, no life to go back to. I've prepared for that. There's a lawyer who specializes in identity restoration. He's already filed the paperwork to have your death certificate reversed. Your accounts will be unfrozen within the week. Your house is still legally yours, since the fraudulent transfer hasn't been completed yet. You can have your life back, Priscilla. But not my son. No, not your son. I walk away from Sarah's grave and back toward the cemetery fence. The night air is cold against my face, sharp with the promise of winter. Dr. Morrison, there's something I need to know. When you were orchestrating all of this, did you ever consider that I might not survive it? That your plan might get me killed for real? Another long pause. I considered it, but I decided that the risk was acceptable. Acceptable to who? To a father who loved his daughter more than anything else in the world. The line goes dead. I climb back over the cemetery fence and drive home through empty streets. The house is still blazing with lights, still locked up tight, still contaminated with the memories of tonight's revelations. But it's my house. My sanctuary. My life. 3 months ago, I thought I had years ahead of me. Then I thought I had months. Then I thought I had days. Now I know I have whatever time anyone has, an uncertain span measured not in quantities but in qualities. In choices. In the decision to keep living even when the people you love betray you. I make another pot of tea and sit at my kitchen table, surrounded by the detritus of my fake death and real resurrection. Insurance papers, police reports, fake medical records, real grief. Tomorrow I'll call the lawyer Dr. Morrison mentioned. I'll start the process of becoming legally alive again. I'll figure out how to rebuild a life that was stolen from me by my own son and given back to me by a grieving father. But tonight, I sit in my kitchen and remember Sarah Morrison. The girl who wrote poetry about hope. The girl who died in my place. The girl whose death finally taught her killer's father that sometimes revenge is the only justice possible. Outside, dawn creeps across the sky like a reluctant witness. A new day. A new chance. A new life for a woman who was supposed to be dead. The grandfather clock in the hallway chimes 6 times, marking the end of the longest night of my life. I'm Priscilla Davenport. I'm 72 years old. I'm not dying of cancer. I'm not dead in a creek. I'm not a victim of my son's greed. I'm a survivor of someone else's revenge story. And now I have to figure out how to write my own ending.